The section from La Crosse to Rochester was my favorite of the entire trip, especially the area around the Root River. The beauty here isn't obvious. It's like a beautiful older woman with long gray hair and warm-weathered eyes that are full of mercy and understanding. There were times when the landscape looked like central Idaho one minute, and then I'd switch back up a huge climb and find myself right back in the Midwest before plunging right back down into Idaho. There always seemed to be a surprise at the bottom of each hill. A river, a campsite, or maybe a reproduction 1950s gas station. Then back up another mile-long climb to the rolling hills of southern Minnesota. Every time I return from a place this beautiful, I wonder why I live near a big city. The answer is family and work, but it's not hard for me to imagine us living outside of Rochester or Madison eventually. Just not yet. One thing is for sure, I have no interest in going back to working in an office every day. I rode in a slow-moving shiny metal box for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, for 25 years, so that I could sit all day in a little cloth box. If I was lucky, I saw the sun a little during my commute, or maybe if I managed to get out for a walk after lunch. COVID put an end to that. Now the Lord has blessed me with the opportunity to work from home, and I don't want to ever go back. Nathan was with me again this weekend, and it was a hot, sunny day, so we were pleasantly surprised by an unplanned 20-mile stretch along the paved and nicely shaded Douglas State Trail, which ended in Pine Island. From there, it was another 15 miles on hilly dirt roads to State Road 52, where we stopped to cool off and reassess our route. It was one of those days when your glasses fog if you go too slow, and even the dust feels hot as it sticks to your skin. So another 25 miles of roller coaster dirt roads didn't sound especially appealing. We chose to run right up Minnesota State 52 to make a beeline for Cannon Falls, knowing full well that a similar decision north of Madison had not worked out. But with a strong tailwind and what turned out to be a huge shoulder that was pool table smooth, we sailed the remaining miles in no time, joyfully hammering up long hills and high gears. We had to do some improvised bushwhacking around a couple construction zones, which was probably the high point of the ride. Cannon Falls is a quaint town nestled along the Cannon River, about halfway between Rochester and Minneapolis. We ate our weight in steak and fresh vegetables at the Rancho Loco Grill in town, just off the highway, and it was outstanding. This area brings back a lot of memories for me. I mentioned earlier that I spent some time at St. Olaf, which is a snooty little liberal arts college not far from here in Northfield, Minnesota. I had no business being there. I was a hard-drinking, impulsive kid with working-class ethics, dyslexia, and PTSD. There was zero chance of me getting out of there intact. There was a gang of entitled and yet freakishly insecure brats in my freshman dorm who wouldn't hesitate to mercilessly torment anyone in the pursuit of validation, including, and perhaps especially, the most vulnerable among us with significant disabilities. I was generally capable of defending others and myself, but I had my limits, and I wasn't prepared at that time for what these guys were eager to dish out. Some of life's difficult and profound lessons come from real evil we encounter, and what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. It took me another 30 years to realize that the only battles of any kind that I've ever really won were the ones that I took the highest possible road, through prayer and the strength of Christ. As you explore the wonderful Twin Cities, Understand that as with any major metro area, some parts are safer than others. That said, you could easily spend the better part of a week here before having some sense of what it has to offer. If you're an art person, then check out the world-class Minnesota Museum of Art, St. Paul, which has street parking and free admission. Or, for a more kid-friendly alternative, check out the Como Park Conservatory and Zoo. The conservatory is particularly impressive and is a nice little winter respite. After working up an appetite, head to the Midtown Market in south central Minneapolis, where you'll find an array of eclectic indoor shops and restaurants to choose from. If you want to see the University of Minnesota, then definitely grab some falafel and fries at Wally's in Dinkytown, just north of campus. Or head to St. Paul to grab an overstuffed cheeseburger at the Nook, where the atmosphere is warm and fun, and the room is filled with hundreds of decorated dollar bills hanging from the ceiling. There's an adjacent mini bowling alley for some old school fun, but be sure to reserve a lane well in advance because it's a popular hangout. Now, if you prefer to explore on foot like we do, then here's a great 9-mile loop that will take you through a variety of cool neighborhoods. Start at the University of St. Thomas and travel east on historic Summit Avenue to enjoy the beautiful homes. Turn south on Fairview for just a block and then continue east on Grand until you reach McAllister College. Fuel up at the French Meadow Cafe near the college, but bring your wallet because it's not cheap. Then head down Snelling to St. Paul Academy and St. Catherine's. I love the view of the park from the chapel. From there, turn south on Cleveland Avenue through Highland Park to Ford Parkway and cross the bridge heading west. Then turn north on 42nd through comfortable and interesting neighborhoods until you reach Lake Street. And then head back east to where you started at St. Thomas. The people are a little tougher and more independent when you get north of Minneapolis, and it's reflected in the landscape. The textures and colors transform from a carpet of green to a bushy tundra of aspen and golden tamarack. After riding for much of the day along the St. Croix Scenic Byway, which had a nice shoulder but too much traffic, I picked up the 70-mile-long Willard Munger State Trail in Hinckley and rode 10 more miles before stopping for the night in Sandstone. That left me with about 66 miles the next day to Duluth. North winds at this latitude cut like a knife, and the forecast was promising an all-day 20-mile-an-hour headwind that I knew would be almost impossible by the time I pulled up to Lake Superior. So the next day I opted for the most direct possible route on Minnesota 23, heading straight northeast to Duluth. It was a tough day, and even in ideal weather, I would strongly recommend staying on the trail. The shoulder for much of 23 is not well suited for bikes, although within about 10 miles of Superior, it becomes a designated bike route with smooth, wide shoulders. As you descend into the massive basin of Lake Superior, the scenery is postcard beautiful.